Hi there everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman and I'm excited to bring you the 27th episode of Mixed Media, The Paper Wishes Way. Today we're going to play with supplies from one of my favorite mixed media companies, 49 and Market. You can see the supplies that we have here. Let's take a closer look and start with the two paper packs that we'll be working with today. So we have two different color combinations. We have lilac and butter. Now these are called mini collections, but they're not mini at all. Each paper pack has 4 sheets of 12 by 12 double-sided papers. You can see some of these beautiful collage designs down here, plus 2 sheets of coordinating laser cut embellishments, and you can see them up here on the top of the package. But let me flip over this front cover of the butter collection, which of course you can use as a sheet, and I'll just bring in one of the sheets of laser cut embellishments from the lilac collection. So you can see the detail and just really beautiful designs in each of these collections. So this one here would be this one right here, seen on the package. They're absolutely stunning. Now to coordinate, we also have rub-ons. So this pack is meant to go with both sets of paper. So you will have beautiful yellow and also really pretty purple designs in here. You'll also, of course, have the tool to apply your rub-on. So you can see some of these beautiful designs, perfect in combination with those pattern papers. Now you may remember rub-ons from your childhood, and these work the very same way. Of course, the designs are just a little bit more sophisticated. Let me show you just one more here. You can see some of those beautiful sentiments on there and some really pretty collage background elements too. Now, also to go along, we have 2 packs of wishing bubbles and baubles, which are epoxy-coated sticker embellishments, and these will just add the finishing touch to our designs. So as you can see, we have a lot to explore today, and I am so very glad you're here. Come play with us. Let's start off by making a simple collage card. Now with these supplies, we have a lot of shortcuts at hand to creating a really pretty card. So let's take advantage of this. I'm going to be working with the rub-ons. I've also got the pattern papers and some of these laser cut embellishments here. So let's take a look at how to put this all together. So I'm going to move aside some of these other elements just so they don't get lost. And we'll start with our pattern paper. Now, because you've got 12 by 12 inch designs and they all have a collaged pattern on them, I can choose which section of the paper I want to use for my card. So here's a beautiful floral element. Over on this sheet, I've got some really gorgeous darks and lights, more florals, and then also some kind of old book paper and what looks to be a white paint on here, but of course it's totally smooth and flat. Now, one other part of this 12 by 12 paper I'm going to point out to you are these strips down here, which if you look, you can see there's the barcode on there. Well, these can be used for other things too, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to move aside these pattern papers. And I'm going to start with this piece here that I've already trimmed out. Now, of course, I could use this side if I wanted to. This is also really beautiful. But I really like this area because I have this beautiful flower that looks like it's been watercolored onto old book paper. And then I have the areas of what could also be more old book paper or old paper at any rate. Kind of layered on top. And then going across the bottom here is a printed border that looks like it's been hand stitched. So while I could do all of those techniques, I could do some stitching on here, I could do some stamping and watercoloring, I'm just going to take advantage of this gorgeous piece of paper and embellish upon it. So you can always do some enhancing on here yourself. Or you could simply call this good and add only a few embellishments on top. You can take it as far as you want to go. So let's start with our rub-ons. Now I want to add something up here in this area. There's a little bit of open space here. So I thought I would bring in the rub-ons. Now this is one of the sheets that's got some more abstract patterns on here, and these are great for just adding an extra special little touch on here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to use a portion down here. Now the nice thing is you can kind of peel back that liner sheet just gently and kind of hold it over where you're thinking of applying the rub-on. So this gives you a little bit of guidance too on where you're putting things. Now with this one, I could use the entire design, but I know I just want this little corner. So what I'm going to do is just grab my scissors and cut right into it. Okay, and then I'm going to set aside this sheet and I'm going to just pull off this liner. Now I've got a clear piece with the rub-on on here and I'm going to just position this right down. Now it's kind of got a sticky, not a highly sticky adhesive surface, but a bit of stick to it. So once you've got this in place, all you need to do is just kind of press down gently, and this means it won't be sliding all over the place. In the rub-on package, you have a little rub-on tool, and this is what you're going to use to make that rub-on stick to your paper. So I like to go kind of holding the tool by the edge, covering more space. Just kind of depends on how big your rub-on is. And then come along on the edges with the tip of that just to make sure you've got all of those areas transferring. And then what you can do is sort of gently pick up one edge and kind of start to peel and lift. And you can see where any of the rub-on may not have lifted, but I think I may be doing okay here. I think I've got it all. These rub-ons are really nice. They go on very easily, so it's maybe not quite what you remember as rub-ons from your childhood, which were a little trickier. The process is the same. Okay, so now I've got my excess sheet. I can go ahead and dispose of that, and I've got some beautiful layering going on over here. Just fills that area perfectly. Okay, so that's going to be step one. Now, I've cut my paper just a little bit smaller than my card front, and I like doing this because I think it adds a nice frame going around the outside edge. So I'm just going to set this down here so we can imagine what this is going to look like. Now, remember those barcodes that I mentioned on that pattern paper. So here's one. Well, if you turn them over, they are a beautiful border. So in this case, I've got the word together, got some little hearts, or butterflies down here. So I can use as much of this as I want to, but I want to emphasize this stitched border on here, which I didn't have to stitch, so I'm quite happy about that. And I'm going to place this down, and then when I'm all ready to go, I'll trim these off at the edges. So I'm going to pop this down here. Now I've also got a laser cut definition of the word splendid, and I'm going to just kind of scoot this here. I'm going to pop this down. I have this up onto some foam tape, and I'm just going to set this here because I want this to kind of read together. So I've got some overlapping elements, which is a kind of classic collage design principles to have some of your elements overlapping. So I'm going to have this piece overlapping so that this will read splendid together. So I would go ahead and adhere that. Now I also have this butterfly. This is one of the laser cuts, and you can tell because it's got this beautiful delicate antenna that I didn't have to cut around. Neither will you. So I have this little guy up on foam tape as well. And then I can kind of position this piece here too. So I'm just setting everything in place. I haven't adhered anything down quite yet. So I've got lots of nice elements on here. I've got a nice balance between, I've got some straight lines, I've got some curved areas here. Now if I want to add another little finishing touch, I can also put down a bit of jute twine. So this is a purple, which is going to match just perfectly. And I'm going to just tie a bow in this. And to always keep, when you're tying a bow, tie it from the long piece of twine rather than cutting it and then trying to snip it down to size. Just makes it a little bit easier. And then what I can do, all of my pieces are wiggling aside. Then what I can do is just add this down here. Now, when I glue this down, I like to use the Cosmic Shimmer glue. This works really well. I just add a little dollop of it right there. And then to hold it in place, this is my trick for gluing down delicate pieces of twine or ribbon. Put this under a clear acrylic block. Sometimes we think to put it underneath a book to keep it flat while the glue is drying. But what can happen when you put a book or other heavy item on is that your glue can slide a little bit. And then when you lift up the book, you find that your bow or your ribbon has moved over a little bit. So this way you can keep track and see exactly that it's gluing in the place where you want it to. Okay, so once I have all of those elements glued down, I think I have a pretty nice, quick and easy collage card. Again, utilizing a lot of the design principles of classic collage and mixed media. I've got lots of different kinds of texture on here. I've got some things that are raised up. I've got some fiber on here. And then also, again, a nice balance between vertical lines, horizontal lines. Got some nice movement and color on here. And yet it was all pretty quick and easy to put together. Okay, so now that we've seen how very easy it is to use these papers and embellishments, let's take a look at some other projects. So we're starting with this supersized chipboard piece. Now this is actually two pieces. The chipboard oval that you see here, which is 7 1/4 inches tall, and that's been mounted onto an 8-inch tall scalloped oval chipboard piece. Of course, you can use the two of these separately, but I love how they look when you layer one on top of the other. I think that scalloped edge just gives a really pretty frame around here. Now, what I've done is for the oval piece, I covered it with pattern paper from the Butter collection. So I just glued that down using a glue stick, placed the pattern paper on top, and then trimmed around with a pair of scissors. Now, I didn't really want to trim around all of those scalloped edges with a pair of scissors, so I decided to skip putting pattern paper on the scallop piece and instead painted it with some Dilutions paint. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to move aside my finished piece and this oval, and we can take a look at the scallop. Now I know that when I'm mounting my oval on top of this, I don't need to worry about painting or covering the entire piece because only the edges are going to show. And I thought, let's take a look at the yellow paint that we have at Paper Wishes, and this is the Lemon Drop. Now this is pretty bright. It's much, much brighter than the Butter collection. So I wanted to tone that down, and that I can do really easily by mixing in some of the white linen paint. So when you're looking at the paints, don't feel like you have to stay with the color that is shown on the label. You can mix and blend your own colors too. So what I've done, I've got a little piece here that I can show you. I've got some of that bright lemon drop and a bit of the white. Now what I found when I was doing this, rather than using a paintbrush, cut and dry foam works really well as an applicator. And it means that I can get a little bit of the white on here and then pick up a little bit of the yellow, kind of blend it together and soften that yellow. And then I can just kind of tap this color on. And this way I'm able to get into the edges, but I'm not kind of getting the brush and excess paint getting into all of that scalloped area on there. So I've just tapped on the paint, and using a piece of cut and dry will also help to help the paint to dry faster because you're not putting on quite as much as we normally do when we're using a paintbrush. So I just tap that color right on there. Only went around the outside edge because you don't need to go into the center. And again, just tapping this on here. Now, if you find, ooh, I've still got some pretty bright yellow on there, just add a little bit more of that white and layer it right on top. So you want something that is soft and delicate and that will match with those beautiful butter papers on there. So that's how I applied my paint on here. Then I've also got, let me bring this in, you can see a little bit better. I've also got some spattering going around on here too. Now this is just a little bit of another paint color that I like a lot, which is the Desert Sand. And I just took some of this, let's put a little bit on here, and picked up, of course, my trusty, well-used, well-loved Distress Splatter Brush. And get some of that on here, and then just splattered this. Again, just focusing around on the edges until I have the color that I want. And then when I can pop this piece down, when everything is all dry, then I'm going to have a really nice border going around there. Now, one other thing I did before putting my oval piece in the center is I added some of the rub-ons on here. So this is a little bit of that yellow lace rub-on. Got some here, and then I've got some here too. So we talked earlier about balance, and this is another good example, kind of top right, bottom left, or the reverse. Then you can have a nice sense of balance on here. So that's what I did before I put down my oval piece on here. Now this oval has been edged also with a piece of cut and dry that's got a little bit of that desert sand paint going on here, so that it's giving me an extra little bit of shadow and dimension on here. So for the rest of the piece, I've added a rub-on right here. I've got some laser die cuts. I've got this beautiful botanical piece. I've got the clock, and I've got the sentiment, and of course that gorgeous butterfly. Then I have a little bit of ribbon on here, and then also here as a hanger. So I think this would be a really nice item to hang in your home as seasonal decor or everyday decor. But you could skip the hanger up here and put this on the front of an album, or even on a 12 by 12 scrapbook page. So there's a lot that you can do with these great big chipboard pieces, and I'm really kind of finding them a lot of fun to play with. Okay, let's take a look at another card, and this one is using the Lilac collection. So we're switching from butter to lilac, and with this card, I've also got some chipboard on here. So this is a smaller, let me show you what it looks like. This is a 3-inch chipboard ornament, and I love using these on cards because you can create an instant card focal. So I use that piece of cut and dry to put a really light blend of white linen and desert sand, so that nice light combination. Just lighten up your desert sand with a bit of white linen like we did with the lemon drop, and just tap that onto this ornament piece. Then once that's dry, I put my rub-on right on top. So that's going to give a little bit of warmer tone underneath the rub-on to show through. And it makes a really nice focal element. And the circle shape balances the more linear look of the rest of the card. So I've got this straight border here. I've got the jute twine wrapped around the card front. And this is just going to add a bit of a softer touch. Now, if you're wondering about this hole on here and how to disguise it, well, you can either have it positioned so that you've got another element covering it up. But very often when you're putting the rub-ons on top, a darker portion of the rub-on will disguise that hole in there completely. So don't feel like you're limited by that little hole on there. You can disguise that pretty easily. Okay, also on here, this is a rub-on, this beautiful leaf, as well as this butterfly, and also some of these little pearls down here, little seed beads is what they look like to me. So these are also rub-ons. And this butterfly is also a rub-on. So I rubbed the butterfly onto a piece of scrap cardstock and then trimmed around the outside edge. This means that I can apply this with some foam tape. So I've got a little bit of dimension, and I've got some overlapping going on here as well. And then I've also got my sentiment foam taped on here and some little epoxy pieces here also. I've got the hearts going on over here, and then also another little epoxy embellishment as well. Now for the card inside, I've got some more pattern paper. I've got another rub-on, so you start to see how easy they are to work into your overall design. And I've got a die cut from the collection and also some more epoxy with that heart, and then this beautiful element here. Okay, let's take a look at one more card, and this one is using a combination of both butter and lilac. For this card, I've used a combination of both paper packs. Although they are completely different color schemes, they go together beautifully. And of course, we know that purple and yellow do contrast really nicely, but in this case, with these soft muted colors, there's not such a high contrast. So they just blend and coordinate so perfectly that, of course, I had to put them together on a card. Now here I've covered the front of my slimline card with paper from the Lilac paper pack. And you'll notice this border down here at the bottom. Of course, on the other side is going to be that barcode, but I had to put it to use as the border on the front of this card. Now I've also got some of these beautiful roses from the Butter collection. So this large one is up on some foam tape, and these other ones are just glued straight down onto the front of the card. And of course, I've got some rub-ons. Now over here you can see I've got this beautiful butter lace collection, and then I've also got this really pretty butterfly. Both of these are rub-ons. So the butterfly is a rub-on that's been applied right on top of this lace. And this is a great technique, a really simple one to do, and a fabulous way to combine your rub-ons. Okay, so let's take a look at how to do this. I've got one of my lace pieces already applied onto a piece of this pattern cardstock from the collection. Now, of course, when you get your rub-ons, you can see I've put quite a few already to use. You're going to have several kind of snippets of this lace. So it's not an entire lace doily, it's just a little portion of it. Really perfect as an edge or a corner treatment. So I've got this light lavender piece already applied down onto my cardstock, and then I just need to find another rub-on to go on top. And it's a good idea to choose something that has a little bit of contrast. So while this is quite light, the butterfly is just a little bit darker. So I'm going to just remove this liner piece and put my butterfly right down, grab my little tool here, and start transferring that design. So just a very, very simple process. I'm going to add in these little seed beads in here too. Give another bit of texture. And sometimes I like to put this on the side and kind of cover more ground this way. Okay, now I'm going to gently ease up my piece of rub-on here and just gently pull this up gradually, making sure that I've transferred everything. And of course, if I haven't, I can pop that back down and have another go. You can see there's one little seed bead that has escaped me. Okay, and then just gently pull this up. So the great thing is, not only are you able to create this really nice layered effect, but if you were worried about whether that rubbing would sort of tear off some of the rub-on underneath, as you can see, you don't need to worry. It gives you a really beautiful layered effect. A really soft and subtle look. And of course, it goes perfectly with the collage style of our background paper. So let's take another look at our card again. So here's our double rub-on treatment here. Now for the card inside, I've used some more pattern paper plus another layered rub-on. So you can see it's super simple. It gives you a really great effect. Now with this last design, I think we can see just how much fun it is to create mixed media collage designs with these beautiful supplies from 49 and Market. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're really glad that you're here with us. I can't wait to see what you create. Do be sure to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.